I'd like to talk about eating. We have a big thing about eating. We human beings have a big thing about eating. With some of us, it's a huge thing. It's a really big thing. There's a reason for that. The reason is we have 3 mouths on our faces, and this makes eating a big deal. We have our eyes, we have our nose, and we have our mouth. And all 3 of those things really are mouths that are eating all the time. Regardless of what you eat with your mouth, if you're depressed or despondent, no matter what you breathe with your nose, it won't cure you. But we don't know that because we think being cured is just feeling better. If we can get rid of the symptoms, we think that we've gotten rid of the disease. We won't cure the depression or the despondency until we get the love letter that we're looking for, or we get the paycheck, or we get the raise, or we get the good news, whatever it is. You know, you passed the test and you're now the PhD or whatever. Then we're not depressed anymore, and we're not despondent anymore. Then we're happy. Now, the letter that we get isn't air, and it isn't physical food. All it is really is a piece of paper, and all the ink is just markings on that piece of paper. And yet, for us, it has meaning. And so we're no longer depressed or despondent. And it's the meaning that transforms our state. And really, the transformation of our state is what this work is about. This work is not about gaining weight or losing weight. If you win the lottery, you pass from depression to rejoicing without any difficulty whatsoever. What we read, what we see, what we hear, what we think constitute impressions. Now, the work says, as you've heard dozens of times, you can't live without impressions. We've talked about it before, and people have asked before, well, what does that mean, you can't live without impressions? I think I can live without impressions. Well, you can think anything. It doesn't have to be true. You can believe anything. It doesn't have to be factual. That's the wonderful thing about us. We can think anything, and then we can believe it. And then we can act as if it were actually true and base our entire life on it and have no reality and no truth in it whatsoever. But we can still think that and believe that. Our real life is the world of impressions and how we receive and react to them. It's what determines everything that we do. Curtis and Steve and I were having a discussion yesterday, and Steve was in one state. And then he started to share with Curtis something about his personal work aim. It's something he doesn't share with people very often because I'd never heard him share it with anybody else before. And I don't know if anybody else in the group knows about it. But he shared it with Curtis yesterday. And it was interesting. I thought, well, why is he talking about this? I never did figure out why he was talking about it. But he started to talk to Curtis about it. And we moved from the kitchen into my office. And Steve was standing there talking about whatever it was. And Curtis and I were sitting down. All of a sudden, Steve's state changed. He finished sharing whatever it was he had to share. His state changed. It was so dramatic. It was like someone coming in from outside after they'd been working out in the yard. And they were covered with grass stains and mud and leaves and sweat and dirt. And then they went and they got all those clothes off and they took a shower and they shaved and they shampooed their hair and combed it and they got all dressed up and came back out. It was that different. It was that remarkably different. Curtis and I both noticed it. And so we mentioned it. Steve had no idea. No, I'm not. That's the same as I always am. And that's when we realized that you can have a change of state and not even know it. You can be so unconscious. You can live so much in your imagination of who you are. You can live so much in your photo gallery of who you are. You can imagine that you're in this better state when you're in the worst state you could possibly be in. And it was just such a contrast, such a stark example of that it was remarkable. We were both amazed. Both of us were amazed. We looked at each other like, he's not understanding what we're saying. We're telling him, and no, it's not that way. And we were both looking at each other like, how could he not know this? How could he not see this? Of course, he couldn't stand outside of himself and see himself. We could. Now, the purpose of self-observation is so that we can stand outside of ourselves and see ourselves. So that we can stand apart from ourselves and see ourselves. So that we can stand alongside of ourselves and see ourselves. So that we can stand behind ourselves and see ourselves. Or so that we can stand in front of ourselves and see ourselves. And from all these different angles. This is the purpose of self-observation. Why? Because it helps us to receive and react to impressions, the impressions that we're receiving all the time, not just through the 3 mouths on our face. We hear as well, and we get a lot of impressions from what we hear. We have to learn inside in this real life of ours, where the impressions are, how to live in a right way. Why do we have to learn to live in a right way? You don't have to learn to live in a right way inside in the world of impressions. You can go to the grave just fine without ever learning anything at all about how to live inside in the real world of impressions in the right way. People do it all the time. People do it every day. But is that what you want? Do you want to be one of those people who dies without a clue of what life is about, without a clue of what you could have done, what you could have been, what you could have achieved, what is possible for you? Is that how you want to live your life? And it's not because you're here. But the next question is, well, how much effort are you willing to make to have this? How important is it to you? Impressions have materiality. They're finer than air or physical food, but they are still material things. They have weight, they have substance. And we miss this. And we miss this because we are so focused on the grosser, heavier, louder, thicker impressions of air. We don't think of air as particularly thick. But if you're riding a motorcycle and you're riding 100 miles an hour, 110 miles an hour, 120 miles an hour, and you're ducked down behind the shield, but you lift your head up, air certainly makes an impression on you then, doesn't it? Especially if you don't have a face shield on or glasses. It makes a huge impression on you. It's like being hit. It's like running into a wall. It's like having a wall hit you in the face. So we don't think generally of air as having substance, but it does. But it doesn't have nearly as much substance as like being hit in the head with a raw potato. Oh, I could live if I was hit in the head with a raw potato. Well, maybe if you have a helmet on, and you're doing 120 on your motorcycle, and somebody throws a raw potato off a bridge and hits you in the head, if you have a helmet on, you could live. It's possible. Do you understand? It's all a matter of the situation. And so impressions are like that. It's all a matter of how we receive them. It's like the raw potato or the air. It's all a matter of how we receive it. If you're moving at 120 miles an hour and you lift your head up and you don't have anything to protect your face from that air, you receive it in a different way than if you have something that can shield your face. Same thing with the raw potato. Impressions are like that. If we're receiving constant negative criticism, fault-finding, bad news, under ordinary conditions in life, this won't give us the right force for normal life. People who are constantly receiving all that end up being what we call in life dysfunctional. They end up having wounds. They end up being fragmented. Their personality is fragmented. They can't develop in a whole way because something's missing. And what they are getting is causing problems. It's like any diet. I remember one time in Topanga Canyon, this is back in the 70s, when Topanga Canyon was a really stranger place than it is. 60s and 70s, it was very strange. It's not like that anymore, but I mean, it's kind of like that, but it's not like that. It used to be a very strange place. I remember there were these people who got it into their head that the color of the food that they ate was the most important thing. And so they looked at all of the different vibrations of food and colors and what they meant and which was the highest. So they decided that the only thing to eat was white food because that was the highest form of vibration. And it included all the others, you know. So that meant that they could eat refined sugar and potatoes and marshmallows and white rice, you know, all of the things that if it was white, then they could eat that. So that's what their diet consisted of, just white food. Now, it doesn't take long for your body to start to notice an effect to that. It's not a good effect. But the longer that it goes, the more your body has leached out of it, out of your bones, out of your body. The minerals and the things that you need, that you're not getting, have to be leached out of storage reserves, whatever is storing them in your body. And you start to deteriorate. That's the way it works. Well, with the constant negative criticism, fault-finding, bad news, that is the same way. Eventually, if you soak in that enough, eventually it will start to deteriorate you. So those kinds of impressions are not good. Certainly not a steady diet of them. For a long time, we try to get impressions from others that will make us content with ourselves. Our life becomes about making other people give us the impressions that we think we need to be happy with ourselves. What does this mean? When somebody lives a life like that, it means they're in trouble. What do you crave most mechanically in life? What is it you crave most? Approval?
To feel good.
To feel good. Feel good is kind of a ambiguous term, isn't it?
Drink alcohol. You eat food.
So, okay. Actually, the thing that I think we'll all have to agree that we crave most is attention. If you don't have attention, it doesn't matter what else you have. You can have all the food you want. You can have all the alcohol you want. You can have all the whatever you want. If you don't have attention, eventually you're going to have a problem. Attention belongs to the satisfaction of the vanity, which is why we crave it, because we are so vain, we are so proud. Boy, you should see your faces. You do not like that. Well, maybe you're vain, but I'm not as vain as you are. No, of course, nobody's as vain as everybody else. None of us are as vain as everybody else we know. None of us are as vain as the other person sitting next to us, or the person standing in front of us, or the other people that we know. Of course not. They're all mechanical. We're awake. They're all fools. We're awake. It's the same old thing. Living from this means living from false personality and by false personality. And living by false personality is a harsh way to go in life. A lot of people look at it like, well, it's the only way to go in life. And for a lot of people, it is the only way to go in life because they're never going to be conscious of anything. What it really means is they have no center of gravity in themselves. When we're living by this means, living by false personality, we exist only as functions of praise or blame of others. Somebody praises us, we feel great. Somebody blames us, we feel rejected, dejected, despondent, depressed, angry, whatever comes with that. And we're no more than other people's hand puppets. We're not even marionettes. We don't even have strings. We're just hand puppets. It's so direct. It's such a hands-on thing. We're praised, we're happy. We're blamed, we're down in the dumps. Think about it. It's absolutely insane. But this is how we end up living because we have no center of gravity in ourselves, and we're at the effect of false personality and whatever other people are saying or doing. So success will raise us to a wrong feeling of ourselves, and adversity will hit us very hard. Something doesn't go your way, some people are hit very hard by it. Other people, no big deal. They have more of a center of gravity in themselves. The question in this work is, which one of those people do you wish to be? The one who lives on the top, the little cork on the top of the waves in a hurricane? Or the one who has an anchor that goes deep, that no matter what happens, he's steady, he's firm? On what do impressions fall in you? This is really the question you have to ask yourself. On what do impressions fall in you? Do they fall on the dog in you? Like Buddy Love, who always wants attention and goes from person to person to person to person to person. Pet me, pay attention to me, give me attention. Or do they fall on the cat in you? The one who can act affectionate or act indifferent to get whatever it is you want. Or do they fall on the snakes in you that hiss at everything? Can you see those things in you? Can you see how you use those animals in you to manipulate others to get what you want? No. Yes? No? Some of you can, some of you can't. Well, good. If you can, it's because you've been observing yourself. If you can't, it's because you've been observing other people. That's it. Well, there are two things you can do with this work. You can use it on yourself or you can use it on others. Isn't that it? We either use it on ourselves or we use it on others. We use it on others, we get nothing for ourselves. We use it on ourselves, we get something for ourselves. And this is about getting something for yourself. Watch where impressions go. Watch where they go in you. Watch where they go. They go somewhere. Watch where they go. Self-observation is to make us more conscious of the things that are going on inside of us. That's its purpose, to make us more conscious of what goes on inside of us in this real world of impressions. How are you going to become more conscious unless you start to watch where the impressions go? You've got to see where they go, not just what they are. Well, I have the impression that you're blaming me. I don't care. So what? What good does that do you? It does you no good at all. Well, I have the impression you're blaming me. Well, fine, but where does that impression go? Because that impression didn't start there. That impression came from wherever it fell on you. An impression came in, like a white sheet of paper, as we say. Impression comes in like a white sheet of paper. Then it goes somewhere. Wherever it goes determines then what our reaction to it will be. So if it goes to a low, small, mechanical place in us, our reaction will 9 out of 10 times be negative. If it falls on a deeper part of us, a truer part of us, then the response will be entirely different. The impression will be entirely different. So what we need to do is have impressions fall on the parts of us that we want to nourish, because impressions are food. And if they fall on the parts of us that we don't want to nourish, then the parts of us we don't want nourished will become stronger and grow. And then they'll get out of hand. And that's where we are now. Where we are is impressions fall on the small, negative, tiny, ignorant parts of us. The little eyes that are spiteful, vengeful, stupid, unintelligent, inflexible, impatient. You got it. And they feed them and they become stronger. They're constantly eating. And it's just like a litter of puppies or kittens. The one that's constantly eating is getting bigger, and the bigger it gets, the more it eats. And the more it pushes the others out of the way, and the smaller the others get. And there's always one little runt who gets whatever's left. And sometimes in life, the runt dies. So we need to watch where impressions go. But see, we live on the surface of ourselves, and we really don't penetrate very deeply to see that which prevents higher influences from falling on us. We're so connected to the surface of life that it's hard for us to break away long enough to get deeper inside of ourselves and find out what's really going on. The problem is the unconscious side of us stands between us and the influences of higher centers. And the unconscious side of us is huge. We have this little tiny tip of the iceberg that's the conscious mind above the water level. And then we have this huge, gargantuan chunk of ice that's underneath the surface. And we know nothing about that because we can only see this little tip, so we think that's what there is. We live on the surface of ourselves. We live above the water instead of below it, where the real life, where the real world is happening, where real things can be done. Not much can be done up there with that little bit. You're not going to pick it up by that little top and move it around very easily. But if you can get underneath it and lift it up, it's an entirely different thing. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to get down underneath what makes us tick, what makes us do the things we do, and make the corrections there so that the corrections are real corrections. Unless we realize, for example, what fools we are, always imagine that we're not fools. Unless we realize what liars we are, we'll always imagine that we are always telling the truth. And even when we're not telling the truth, it's necessary to tell the little white lie. And this is how we live our lives. No wonder the world looks like it looks. When impressions fall on the deeper level, we begin to live in a new world. Impressions don't all just fall on a deeper level of us being. That's it. It's something that we need to make inroads for. It's like digging a trench before a rain. You dig the trench where you want the water to go. We need to be doing that. We need to be digging a trench of where we want those impressions to go. Well, sometimes you have to dig a trench in the rain. There's nothing you can do about it. Well, but it's already raining. What's the use? There's a use. So we dig. And this is what self-observation is about. It's about digging trenches. It's about making inroads inside of ourselves so that we can let the light fall into new places, let the impressions fall into new places, deeper places, better places in us. And there are better places in us. Everybody has worse places and better places. Everybody has better eyes and worse eyes. Everybody has better feelings and worse feelings. Everybody has better states and worse states. We don't think we do. It was like Steve yesterday. No, this is the same state I'm always in when I'm with you guys. No, it's not. We can feel the walls are down. You are smiling. You're not standing over us anymore. You're now sitting down with us. He was open. He was available. There was none of the usual defensiveness and intimidation. He was just there, just sitting there with us. And it was a totally different person than the one that we are accustomed to. And he didn't know it. And what I'm saying is that we're all like that. I'm saying that was a good example of what we are like. But we don't believe it. Now, after a while, we talked to him for a while. After I talked to him for a while, he began to see it. And I said, okay. And I gave him a task. I said, okay, well, do this. And now he's got himself a task. And we shall see what happens with that. If he'll struggle, then something's got to happen. And if he'll struggle by making right effort, something about his aim, his work aim, will be forwarded. That's how it works. The work teaches that we've got to have constant impressions to live. We've got to have the impressions of all the foods of earth because, as above, so below. We are a microcosm of the macrocosm in which we live. We are part of the organic film of life on this planet, which means we are equipped to function in that organic film, which means I can tell the difference between a carrot and a parsnip by tasting it. I can look at a carrot and a parsnip and I can tell the difference. You know, there's some people who can't. Oh yeah, go to Jimbo's and buy some carrots and buy some parsnips. And the checker will know what the carrots are. And they'll have to ask you, what are these? They won't know what the parsnips are. Why is that? Because Americans don't eat parsnips. Americans eat French fries. Americans eat hamburgers. Mm-hmm. Americans eat ho-hos and ding-dongs and Twinkies and supersized at that. But we don't eat parsnips. You wouldn't believe how many things I bring through the checkout stand. They don't know what it is. They have to ask me what it is. What's this? And you think, what planet do you come from? And they think, what planet do you come from? But you see, I know what those things are because I have acquired a taste for them. They don't. So because we are part of this organic film, and because we are equipped for these things, we're born into a universe to which we can respond, and which responds to us if we find out the right requests to make. And if we don't find out the right requests to make from the universe, it never responds to us. It just mechanically does what it does. But if you consciously start to find out the right requests to make and make those requests, it will respond to you. If you start to dig the trench so that the water will run down to the deeper places in you, the universe will respond by sending the water to the deeper places. It's just that simple. But no, it can't be that simple. No, it can't be that simple, because if it is, it shows what slackers we are. It shows what slugs we are. It shows how lazy we are. It shows how unconscious we are. And that can't be true, because that doesn't fit our pictures of ourselves. That we always make all the effort, that we're always the ones who are trying, that we're always the ones who are forgiving, that we're always the ones who are speaking first, that we're always the loving ones, we're always the generous ones. It's the other people who don't respond in kind. They're the problems. Yeah, we have the power to taste organic life. See, we think that different tastes lie in different things. We think that, for example, the taste of a carrot lies in a carrot, and the taste of a parsnip lies in a parsnip. But it doesn't, because I'll guarantee you, a pig can't tell the difference between a parsnip and a carrot. But you can. Maybe. But you've got the ability to distinguish different tastes. It's not in the thing. It's in you. It's your power. The thing is just a piece of wood. A carrot is just a piece of wood. A parsnip is just a piece of wood. They are roots. What's the difference between a parsnip and the root of an oak tree? The difference lies in our power to taste differently. We're constructed to take in impressions. One side of us takes in the products of nature. We've been talking about that, the parsnips and the carrots and the cabbages and this and that, the sights and the sounds, the smells. We can smell pine trees. We can smell fresh air. We can distinguish the difference between the two. That power lies in us. But we've got more than we use. We always got more than we use. Have you ever noticed that? So the checker has got more than she uses. She doesn't know what a parsnip is. She doesn't know what Napa cabbage is. She doesn't know what these things are. Well, what's this? It's a rutabaga. She's got something she's not using. What is it?
Ability to discern.
An ability to discern. An ability to categorize. An intellect. She's not using it. How many times a day could they come through there? You could know, but there's no value. And so it just goes by. It's an impression that just goes by. It doesn't fall on the right place. But if you let that impression fall on the right place, suddenly you are increased. Well, how are you increased? Your ability to distinguish is increased. Your ability to categorize is increased. A lot of abilities are increased. And that's just one thing. Food is an impression, first of all. And then it's a substance, a physical food. The impression gives appetite. Substance of the food gives nourishment. Think about it. The impression is what gives you an appetite. The actual substance of the food is what nourishes your body, the cells in your body. Inner taste can distinguish between good psychological food and bad psychological food. This really all it does have a purpose. I'm not just talking about food to make you hungry or irritable, because I know that when you get hungry, you get irritable. And when I talk about food, you get irritable, even if you've just eaten, because it's an irritating subject to you. You don't like it. Then let those impressions fall somewhere else. How do I do that? Dig a trench to some place better in yourself than where you usually let those impressions fall. But no, it's so much easier to blame you because you're talking about the wrong thing, because you're being irritating. Yes, of course, it's always easier to blame another person than it is to dig a trench. It's always easier to blame them than it is to make new inroads to a better place in yourself where those impressions can fall and lift you out of that small, negative, mechanical state and put you in a better place. The supreme physical impression that we can give the whole machine is self-remembering. It's the finest taste of all tastes. It's the taste of something akin to I, real I. We don't know what that is, but it's a goal. It's something more real than anything that we now know. And we want what's real. Something about bananas or strawberries or peaches that people like. And so what has the commercial world done? Well, they've made strawberry flavored soda, banana flavored water, peach flavored gum, or whatever. All these synthetic artificial flavorings. And do they really satisfy? No. You always know that it's not the real thing. Well, this tastes just like peaches. Oh, really? So you can't tell the difference between that and a peach? Oh, well, no. But it's, for artificial, it's pretty close. Yeah, but it's still artificial and it still has that aftertaste. You see, the artificial that we're constantly taking in is really not satisfying. But this real taste of real I, that is something that satisfies. Even though we don't know what it is, we do want something more real. We can see in degrees that there are things that are more real and less real. There are things that are more negative and less negative. There are things that are better and worse. One moment of self-remembering supplies every cell in the body with food that it doesn't usually get. When you remember yourself, you give a shock to the whole of you. Every cell in you is fed new food. Well, how can you verify this? Well, try remembering yourself. I remember myself all the time, and I didn't feel anything like that. Maybe you're just imagining that you're remembering yourself then. When you remember yourself, you know it. You've had moments, a couple of times. You remembered yourself, and all of a sudden, the light coming in the window was brighter. You remembered yourself, and all of a sudden, you smelled something that you had never smelled, and you were in that place, and I never smelled that before. But there it is, and now you can't not smell it because it's there. But when you weren't remembering yourself, you were so immersed in your little mechanical surface world that all those things just went by you like the things that the checker doesn't know what they are on the checkout stand. What's that? What's that? What's that? And if it's got a little label on it, so they can scan it and go, bloop, then they never have to ask at all. They like that even better. You notice that? That's even better. It's produce that gives checkers a hard time. It's not the canned stuff. It's not the bag stuff. It's not the stuff with what is the little thing on there? UPC code. It's not that gives them a hard time. They just go, bloop. They scan that through. They don't even look to see what that is. And you know that because you go and check your bill and you've got like 9 things on there that you never bought. Oh, well, this needs to be calibrated. It's calling cans of this something else. And you got a human being there who could tell you that if they were looking, if they were paying attention, but they're living on the surface. They're not distinguishing anything. They're not interested in impressions. They're at work, for God's sake. They're interested in what time they get off. They're interested in what time the break is. They're interested in who they're going to meet afterwards. They're not interested in what they're doing. That's asleep. But if you ask them, they'd say, no. Wish I was asleep. I wish I could sleep. Do you see what I'm saying? This is where we live. Instead of remembering, we think about everything. That's it. We even think about self-remembering. Instead of remembering ourselves, we just think about self-remembering. What are you doing? I'm remembering myself. Well, actually, what you're doing is you're thinking about remembering yourself. Or thinking about when you did remember yourself. Or thinking about the next time you're going to remember yourself. Or thinking about what it'll be like. We think about everything. Remembering means stop your thoughts. Stop everything and be nothing. Be nothing. When you remember yourself, you are more aware of your nothingness. That's got to give you a clue of how much you don't remember yourself. We are constantly filled with internal consideration. Anyone filled with internal consideration is not remembering themselves. Anyone who can remember what you did to me last week is not remembering themselves. Do you get it? That's not remembering yourself. That is turning the wheel of internal consideration and digging your own grave deeper and deeper and deeper. That is the wheel of internal consideration and it's digging that is the wheel of internal consideration. It's digging your grave deeper. It's not touching them. It doesn't have anything to do with them. This is about you. Our self-hypnosis, our continual identification, our useless thoughts, our constant internal considering, account making, negative emotions, all these things hinder our ability to remember ourselves. They all stand in the way, but they don't stand in the way against us. We put them there. We choose them over self-remembering, just like we choose sugar over an apple, just like we choose chocolate over a pear. Why? Because we are out of balance. Because we have whacked ourselves so out of balance by hitting this too hard that we can no longer distinguish good from bad, right from wrong. We're so out of touch with real conscience, we don't know what right is, what wrong is, because we have acquired conscience instead. We're so out of touch with our natural taste, we haven't a clue. We go to a store, what do we pick? Synthetic, artificial? Why? Oh, it's easier. No, it's not easier. Try to get the lid off of some of those things. It's not easier. It's not hard to get a lid off an apple. I mean, think about it. It's not difficult. They don't child-proof them. There's a reason for that. We've got to step out of ourselves. We've got to step out of our lives. We've got to step out of our mechanicalness. The highest impression is the feeling of real I. And this impression comes from inside, not from outside. And it changes every impression that comes from outside. One impression of real I will change every impression that comes from outside. Everything is changed. Because this internal state of self-remembering, this internal state has the power to transform everything that comes into it. It's like the magic kingdom. It really is. It's like the magic kingdom. Everything that comes into it is magically touched by it and transformed. And this is the power that we have within us. This is the possibility that we have that we're just letting go by on the check stand. See, here's all this good food going by, and the person doesn't even know what it is. Let's just get this stuff bagged out and get the next one through so I can get my break, so I can get my paycheck, so I can get out of here, so I can get home, so I can go do this, so I can go do that. Why? Well, I need to go watch a television program. Which one? Doesn't matter. They're all the same. Anybody who's ever watched television's got to know that's true. Why people are glued to those. What are those things with the thumb thing? The remote control. People are glued to those things. Why? Well, because they got to keep going until they find something to watch. So now, what's something to watch? Something to watch is like 3 programs at once. Picture in picture. Well, when are we going to have like 12 pictures in pictures so we can watch all 12 programs at once? Because there's got to be some nourishment in 12. We can't get any nourishment out of 1 or 2 or 3. So maybe if we get 12, maybe you think maybe that's why we're so fat? Because there's just no nourishment in our food, and we just keep on gorging ourselves with more and more and more, and there's no nourishment, just useless, stupid calories that do us no good, just gain this weight, but we're not getting what we need. It's possible. I don't know. Could be. The more a thing means to you, the more impressions you get from it. On what food or impressions do you nourish yourself? What's more important to you? What means more to you? Well, people accepting me and loving me and respecting me, that's important to me. Okay? And I predict for you a life of hell. If that's what's important to you, I predict for you a life of hell. If you're negative internally, if you take in unpleasant impressions and feed on them, you'll infect the whole machine. You can't affect just one little part. The whole machine is affected. All of you is affected. Well, but it's just this. It's just this one person. I love everybody else. It's just this one person. All of you is affected by the negativity you take in internally about the one person, the one event, the one thing. All of you is affected. You can't be selective about this. You need to be selective in distinguishing what you are going to allow to nourish you, what impressions you are going to allow to come in, and where you're going to allow them to fall. You know, some impressions you don't have to take. You can leave them. When you make effort, you go against entropy. Do you remember what entropy is? It's the exchange of something. So let's say we have a teapot, and we pour hot water in the teapot, and then we set the teapot on the counter. Entropy is the exchange that goes between the atmosphere around the teapot and the teapot. So let's say we just take heat. The teapot is hotter than the air around it, the atmosphere around it. So the atmosphere around it constantly takes some of that heat. That heat is dispersed into the atmosphere until what happens is maximal entropy is reached. Maximal entropy means that the teapot and the water in it have all become room temperature. You know that has to happen. In this life, that's how this world works. Entropy is how this world works. Well, it works with us that way too. And where we are now, mostly, is we have reached maximal entropy. Our inner world and our outer world are the same. There's no difference. What we're trying to do here, what this work is about, is trying to make a difference. Trying to create the friction that is needed inside of you to generate some heat so that there's a difference between your inner world and the outer world. If your inner world and your outer world are the same, you're in a world of hurt. Because whatever happens out there happens in here. But if you can change that, if you can minimize the entropy by allowing this work to do something inside of you in your internal world, in the world of impressions, the real world, then what happens out there doesn't have to affect you in the same way. Somebody can say something to you that used to make you negative, and it doesn't have to make you negative anymore. Deny yourself something, its attraction increases while your entropy decreases. This is why denying yourself is such a good thing. And this is why giving yourself everything you want is such a bad thing. Take a child who gets everything that they want. Great kid, right? Boy, there's a kid I want to be around all the time. He doesn't get what he wants, screams, yells, throws tantrums, fits, or just gets a gun and shoots people. You take it to all kinds of degrees, can't you? And don't they? But a child who has not been given everything that they wanted has learned something else. When you deny yourself something, its attraction increases for you. You deny yourself food for a couple of days. Man, food starts to look good. I don't care what food it is. You can smell it. You look at it and it's appealing. You hear somebody else eating something crunchy and it's like, oh. I mean, it just brings you to life. Deny yourself some things and see what happens. What does happen is your entropy decreases. Self-remembering is to decrease entropy by having a distinct sense between you and external life. If you are at room temperature, how can you tell the difference between you and external life? You can't. But if you're hot and it's cold, or if you're cold and it's hot, you can tell the difference. That's what we're looking for. Self-observation is about that. All identifying increases entropy. If you're identified with it, you're glued to it, there's no difference between you and it. You're at room temperature. And when there's no difference between us and life, we become a function of the organic film on this planet. We're just like cows or sheep or trees or grass or clouds or anything else. That's all. We're just a part of that. And there's more for us. The question is, are you willing to do what it takes to get it?
You are
to find the truth.